Today's guest is Carla. I met her in San Diego about 5 years ago, right when I started my spiritual journey. I saw that there was a cacao ceremony at Trilogy Sanctuary and I signed up. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And when I got there, Carla had chocolate drinks, but
Mhm.
it's called cacao. And there was this whole ceremony with a group of, I think there's like 30 people there, and we all sat in a circle and passed the cup of cacao to each person, which was really, that was a cool experience because we all get to kind of like put our own love into it and really connect with each other. And then we said gratitude and we set intention and we started this journey of chanting mantras, practicing yoga, dance and movement. And we even, sometimes we would break out into groups and ask each other questions and kind of just talk. This was so amazing for me because I just came from a culture where every weekend I was binge drinking and getting blackout drunk. And now I was awakened to this whole new way of living with this nurturing drink and all these different people who were willing and open to expressing themselves and being more present and more communicative and appreciative of their lives. And then Carla also hosted a few goddess retreats that I went to with maybe 20 plus women. And we got to be there with each other for a whole weekend and really open up and get intimate with each other. And I've created lifelong friends. I actually still talk to one person. We're pretty close. I then traveled. I came back to San Diego and Carla was gone. She moved to Guatemala, but still continuing her journey with cacao and these workshops and retreats. If you want to add to anything about your San Diego journey, or if you want to continue on to what did you learn in Guatemala? What were your experiences like there?
I just want to say thank you for bringing me on, and thank you for just reminding me, helping me remember those really special, precious times in San Diego at Trilogy Sanctuary. Those cacao ceremonies were like my big opening big debut to the world. It was really those ceremonies that carved the path for me to be the person that I am now. Before that, I was teaching, some yoga classes, doing like some private Reiki classes here or Reiki sessions here and there. And then when I started doing the cacao ceremonies, I realized that I would love to facilitate big groups and retreats and help men and women connect to their hearts, connect to one another. I wanted to give people an experience that was spiritual, but also fun and enlivening and blissful. And so, cacao, this sacred plant medicine that is pure chocolate made into an elixir that's in a high dose or like high concentrated amount, is such a powerful sacrament to open people up to this space. It has these amazing properties that are heart opening and expanding and connecting. Yeah, I love you sharing those initial ceremonies, because I don't do the same thing anymore. But just hearing it, I'm like, I just recently now moved to Texas. I'm like, I need to bring those back even to now this new community that has never experienced it. And as far as Guatemala goes, like I will always go to Guatemala. This is where I source my cacao. So I make it a point to go and get the cacao myself every time. And I'll go at least once or twice a year, if not longer. When I moved there, I was there for a good 16, 18 months. Yeah, like I was just there in January, picking up my regular 60 pounds of cacao, bringing it back across the border. And it's always going to be this place that I go back to and I connect to the Mayan people, the Mayan calendar. I get to, source my cacao, receive also inspiration from other healers and other people that are on the path. San Marcos, Lake Atitlan in Guatemala is kind of like the spiritual mecca in a way, where there's a lot of yoga retreats, a lot of festivals too, a lot of fun, ecstatic dance, community. But it's just a great place where like healers like myself, can go and heal and also just play, which is medicine in itself. And so like, I love going back there. I'm leading a retreat actually there May 20th in a couple months from now. And, to take people down there too, to connect with my spiritual Mayan teachers, also connect with the land and the lake, which is surrounded by volcanoes. We're going to go to the cacao farm, visit the farm and the women that make the cacao, learn about how to make cacao, how it's made from bean to paste, and then go on an adventure to visit a couple of other towns in Guatemala. One of them having like the biggest artisanal market in all of the country, and also these Mayan elders that do special treatments and healing sessions and like cacao divination with the beans. And from there, we'll go to the pyramid of Tikal and also just connect to this pyramid that is like dedicated to the Grand Jaguar King, the King of Cacao. That was his name, so many thousands or hundreds of years ago. So yeah, Guatemala is just a huge part of my connection and journey with cacao and with facilitating and leading retreats and people into these expansive experiences.
So beautiful. I still have yet to have gone to Guatemala, but it's definitely on my list.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
What else are you currently doing in Texas?
Yeah, so I moved out here for a love relationship. I met a man in Guatemala that had an earthship out there, but he actually has, family and children here in Texas. So in the course of the last 2 years, I've been coming out to Dallas more and more, developing community. I got really plugged in with some really beautiful sisters in the ecstatic dance community, and I've been also sharing some cacao ceremonies. I also now offer combo, which is another medicine that comes from the giant tea leaf frog of the Amazon, and it's an Amazonian medicine that helps people cleanse and detox their body, mental, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so I'm also leading those sessions, on a one-on-one or small group basis. And then tomorrow I'm actually leaving for Peru to go study with my teachers and work with the medicine of ayahuasca for my personal healing, but also for my development as a facilitator and plant medicine carrier. And so I'm really excited about that because I'll be going to Peru, visiting my teacher. And then from there, I'll be crossing the border by land to Brazil and going into the Amazon forest to be with the Yawanawa village and the Hunikuin, which are two of the major tribes that also work with ayahuasca. So I'm really excited about just going there and diving deep into the culture and learning straight from the original source of these medicines.
That is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
How did you get connected to these people?
Well, my teacher, I actually met him like super wild. It's a really magical story, actually. There was a man that at one point I was dating in Guatemala that shared with me this book. He was Peruvian himself. And in the book, it was a story about this shaman and his son and how they went on this pilgrimage. And on the pilgrimage, they took this young American girl with them. And this girl was like 19, and her parents didn't know how to help her. She seemed a little depressed, not like just kind of out of it. And so in the book, the parents were anthropologists, and so they were like, we're going to leave you with the shaman that we know. And she goes on this magical journey and pilgrimage with the shaman and her son. And I just remember reading that book after meeting this man and was like just dreaming of getting to Peru and wanting to do this pilgrimage and etc. So fast forward like 6 months later, I wasn't even dating this guy anymore, but I ended up, booking a ticket to go to Peru. I remember being at the airport being like, I don't have a plan. What am I doing? Like, I kind of have it like a loose plan, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Lima. It's my first time in Peru. I'm going to enjoy the city. I don't need to go straight to the mountains, the Sacred Valley, to like the conscious community hub. Like, I am going to enjoy, my travels. And so I went to Lima, and I like also remembered, I was like, oh yeah, that girl that I know from Peru, like from back in my festival days, like I think her family's in Lima. So I just messaged her really fast, and she connected me with her mom. Her mom invited me over to her place. And then through like a sequence of like these like divinely orchestrated meetings through the cousin and the friend, I was recommended to go meet this man because apparently, he was a writer, and all the things I was interested in learning about Andean cosmology and this pilgrimage, blah, 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 blah. And this girl was like, you need to meet this family and this man, I think he's he has a lot of the information that it seems like you're interested in learning. And I remember like thinking to myself like, oh shit, well I have this flight booked out for the next day, and being like, damn, like I really want to meet this person, but I don't know how it's going to work out. I guess not this time. Well, anyways, I went back home and I was like packing my things and I was like checking my flight information and I couldn't find it anywhere. Turns out like my credit card never went through, so I like didn't have to go on that flight. And I was like,
Wow.
yes, okay. So that next day I like messaged this person, and I just showed up at their house like in the middle of the city and was like, hey, knocked on the door, like, my name's Carla. I want to learn about shamanism and like all these things. And we ended up like chatting for a long time, asking, we had a good like debriefing around, what my intentions were. And I told him about like, this book and wanting to go on this journey. And he was like, well, I am hosting a retreat in Cusco next week, and we're going to be visiting all of these sacred sites. And he was like, it's only $500. I was like, sign me up. I was like, oh my God, like, yes, like I get to go with someone that is like a researcher in these topics. And now he has a retreat. So perfect alignment. Like, I'm going to go on this retreat with him. And he was like, yeah, I'm also doing an ayahuasca ceremony this weekend with my family. My sons are also facilitators. We host ceremonies together if you want to come. I was like, ooh, like it was a little soon. I wasn't expecting it to be so quickly, but I was like, okay, let's go. And I ended up doing the ceremony with him. It was beautiful. And, he's like, I want to experience your cacao ceremony. Like, can you share some of your medicine? I would love to know what this is all about. And I was like, okay. So I like made some cacao and I brought it over to his house and invited everyone in the house, his nieces, his sisters, daughter-in-law, etc. His baby's mama. And I'm like sharing the cacao, and I brought the book with me, and I was so excited to be like, oh my God, this book, like this is my inspiration for this journey and meeting you. And lo and behold, I like take out the book and I show him the book, and he's like, take that away from me. He like scoffed at it. And I was like, whoa, okay, what does that mean? And I'm like, wait a second. I was like, explain to me why are you reacting like this to this book? And he's like, well, this book is written by this man that was my father's student. And in the book, the shaman that he writes about is really loosely based on my father. And he's like, I'm just
Wow.
hurt. I'm just hurt because he never mentioned like or gave credit to my father. And I think that's kind of like, he should have said something about like how much he received like from my father teaching him and all these things.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, like I literally manifested like the shaman son. Literally like this, who this story was loosely based on. Like I manifested like literally the family line, the family lineage
Wow.
that book is like part, such a part of. So yeah, it was really freaking magical. It was one of these like really synchronistic, like celestial prophecy kind of moments where I feel like because I was like so just, in that dream space, reading this book and just like my intentions and my heart and just kind of going into the energy of this book and wanting to go on this journey, that it literally unfolded before my eyes. And then I ended up going on this retreat with my teacher. No one else booked it, the retreat. So it was just him and I went to all these places with him. And then I was like, I shared about some of the places in the book that I wanted to visit, and we ended up going there too, and had like these
Wow.
magical like 2-3 weeks of just like adventure. And it was just like such a gift, from the universe.
What a story.
Oh, it's so wild. I love it. It's just like probably one of the wildest synchronistic moments that have ever occurred. And so that's one way I met that teacher. The other, another way is like going to a gathering for this Yawanawa village, the Yawanawa village festival. It's actually the chief's birthday. And so this is another gathering that I've heard of for several years now. And I have a couple of friends that serve medicine, and they go to this retreat every year. And so in the last year and a half, I've been in communication with this woman that is like an ambassador of these gatherings. And so there's several of these types of people that then are kind of responsible for, handling all of the paperwork and the people and like bringing people to the tribe. And so it's like, she's my ambassador that's going to take me to visit the tribe and the village. And it's like part of her work, giving back to the village. We're making an offering with our money exchange, and it's all supporting the village and then building up like their resources. They were able to create a type of system to clean their water, and now they're wanting to build out like permaculture systems to be able to grow their own food. So they host these gatherings and they open them up to the public so that yeah, they can fundraise, and then we can also receive their medicine and connect to their culture.
That's so beautiful. The
Yeah.
joys of traveling, because it's such a
Yeah,
journey.
it is. It
You
is.
get to meet so many people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna leave for Peru tomorrow, and I'm gonna go like straight to my teacher's home and like spend like 5 days with him, 6 days with him again, and just catch up because I spent those 3 weeks with him. Like he's like a lifelong friend as well now. Someone that I can always call up if I have any questions or need support. One of the gifts that I think, like you said, like of traveling, it's like you meet these people and you're in kind of this vulnerable space. So you kind of have to like trust and depend on people that maybe you would never do
Yeah.
would like in our normal life, and you open yourself up to connections that you never would when you're in your regular rhythm of work and this and that and friends and family. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love travel.
Me too. I find that people are really genuine, and if you ever need help, they'll help you. And it's like all over the world. Because usually, whenever I travel somewhere and I'm going alone, people will always be like, "Oh, aren't you afraid?" or blah, blah, blah. But everyone has been really friendly and open,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's always a great experience.
My family's always like, it's funny when people say that to me, especially if they're American. I'm like, have you ever been to downtown LA? Have you ever been to San Francisco and these certain neighborhoods? I'm like, that's scary. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna catch me there alone traveling. Like it's not
True.
much. It's like really most places like aren't that dangerous. Like there's
Yeah.
danger, everywhere. If you go to the spaces where it's dangerous, but there's also like kind, safe people all over too. And
Yeah.
my grandma always says, just always walk under the light, So like, don't go down the dark alley, go down the lit up alley, the lit up way. So I always take that with me.
For ayahuasca, how do you know when you're being called to it?
This is a big topic, I feel like, especially right now with like the popularity of plant medicines. Doing ayahuasca is one thing, and then obviously like feeling called to facilitate is another. But when I first heard about ayahuasca, it was in 2015, and I didn't
Mhm.
try it for the first time until 2018. So, I think when you hear calling, it's like, it's cool to take note and recognize, like, okay, there's going to be a moment when the medicine is, I want to work with it. Your soul might be asking for some type of connection or epiphany, insight that might come through the medicine. But it's not one of those things that I would say like you need to force or like go out and find. And because when
Yeah.
you start like seeking and grabbing and reaching for things, that's when you're more likely to like perhaps encounter someone that is in alignment, or perhaps is doing it because they're trying to sell something, like this is all
Yeah.
of this like, yeah, materialism, like definitely capitalism definitely infiltrates even the
Yeah.
plant medicine world, unfortunately, and goes for a lot of different spiritual practices. But when you like really like you hear the call, it's great, listen, but like then like truly listen to what comes into your sphere. Like when I finally tried it, like ayahuasca showed up at my friend's home where I was already doing like my combo ceremonies and facilitating. They wanted to offer a ceremony in there, and it was just like, all right, the medicine literally just showed up to the house that I work at, and I sat in the medicine, and guess what, it was still really intense and had a huge ego death. I didn't get the type of integration that I would have preferred, obviously,
Mhm.
but that was also part of my journey and learning what that feels like my teacher tells me, ayahuasca, like that was her teaching me something. And after
Yeah.
that ceremony, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to sit with another Western facilitator again.
Mm.
Like I'm gonna wait till I go to Peru to sit with someone that's more close to the lineage. And so it was a whole year later that's when I went to Peru and met this teacher, and I had I asked him and process with him my first experience, and he helped me integrate that first ceremony that left me a little like not at ease, and then
Yeah.
through working with him I was able to see like the more positive side of the medicine and move through just in a softer, gentler way.
Can you share about that integration? How was it when it wasn't integrated? And then what shifted when you felt like, oh, I can integrate this?
Well, because I had already had like some facilitation experience going into this particular ceremony. The ceremony was kind of like a little bit more loose, and that it wasn't like a formal ceremony. It was kind of like a lot of people that already were working under another church or group that wanted to start their own group. And so the ceremony was kind of like more of like an experiment, and also a lot of people with a lot of experience coming together. But it wasn't my first time. And they have some rules in the ceremony, like no talking, sitting up, and certain things that like when you're tripping, like it's like you mean I'm not allowed to make noises, In the ceremonies that I lead personally, I really want people to express themselves. I want people to release somatically, whether that's crying, whether that's making sounds, moving, like all of my personal work and offerings is around somatic release. So to be in a ceremony where they're like, okay, you're gonna take a bunch of medicine, but you have to sit completely still and be silent. Well, I didn't really understand what what that exactly meant, In that ceremony, like I had a moment where I was crying and then they shushed me, and then
Wow.
my inner rebel like got up and just like went outside and started like dance. Like I was tripping. I was
Yeah.
really on the medicine, doing things that like I was like, it was in control but not in control. Like now I can see that it was like a part of my ego that was like, in spirit, that was like rebelling, and
Hmm.
but in the moment, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm just following my heart. And I was like, well, if I can't make noise here, I'm going to go outside and make more noise
Yeah.
where I think I can, and then in that ceremony, I drank more medicine after that. And then had another where the medicine like really took over me. And then I was like, I in that part of my journey, I was working on opening my voice, and I really wanted the medicine to help me open my voice, because I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, ayahuasca helps me sing and da 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 da. So there was a moment where I was like getting some energy healing, and all of a sudden this opening happened where I was like, oh, and I was like making all these noises, and I kind of got like, also in this way, kind of like shamed or like hushed, and like the facilitator just like said something in a way that was kind of like, are you done now? And it like all of a sudden triggered like shame and embarrassment, because I was like, whoa, I didn't know, like, am I doing something that was wrong? Like I
Yeah.
was so like high in the medicine and just in this other space, that when he did that, it like hit me like, oh shit, like oh wait a second, what's happening? And like I just
Hmm.
crashed, like, and had a really
Wow.
dark trip after that, in the sense of like, being in my mind and looping and feeling ashamed and feeling kind of humiliated, and like I did something wrong, and like almost like not able to speak, and just like, oh, just like left with this
Yeah.
really feeling of like, oh my God. And then that started ended up being a little bit, I ended up doing a couple more things that were like kind of wild. Like now that I look back, I'm like, there was definitely something happening with me that was like, I don't know if it was me or some type of spirit or energy that kind of took over me, that was making me kind of act very rebellious and kind of out of control.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a moment where I took off all my clothes and I started jumping up and down, like things that like are just, really, really like just out of it, and yeah, like the next day, no one like took me aside and was like, hey, like, how was your experience? And because I had like this shame and embarrassment, I also didn't bring it up. I kind of just kept it to myself, and kind of
Hmm.
was like, I don't know what happened. I couldn't really put to words, explain like what just happened to me. And so, yeah, I kind of left there being like, weird, that was weird, like in some ways I blame the facilitators. In some ways I felt like something was in the space that wasn't like correct. I don't know. I had a lot of people tell me different things about why this happened, and it's a ceremony that even till this day, I'm still integrating. As I shared, I'm like, what was that? Like, what took over me? Why was I this way? When I went to see my teacher a year later, because I was like, okay, I don't trust any Western facilitator. I want to go sit with a Peruvian shaman. I asked my teacher, I was like, can I have a private ceremony? I was like, I want to work on my voice. I want to have a space to release somatically. Would you be able to hold a ceremony for me privately, so that if I have this energy that it wants to be released, I can do that in a space where I'm not going to be shunned because it's a quiet space. This goes into like some of the kind of the protocols around ceremony. Like we might use the word like masculine to describe the kind of ceremony that has a lot of rules, like so silence and sitting up and no talking and no sounding out things. Like tears are welcome, some cathartic releases are welcome, but nothing beyond like minimal tears and sobbing. And then there's like these new ways that, like, where women are leading ceremonies, or just opening up the space to a more feminine style ceremony where there is a lot more space for creativity and creative expression and sound and dance and movement. And it's actually been really healing to now also, in the last few years, gone to ceremonies where it's like the whole time we're dancing or singing. And I actually found that a lot of the sick feelings that I was getting when I'm just sitting down and constricted, like, went away once I was given that space to move with the medicine and be more creative and flow and actually ecstatic. Like I said, like my teacher said, like, that was part of your medicine path, probably because I am a facilitator and I'm on this path of learning around, like, learning how to facilitate, how to be trauma informed, how to just create like safe and sacred spaces. I had to go through that experience to know what not to do, or
Yeah.
what doesn't align with my personal practice. The more I understand it, the more I accept, and I just released, and like, and the person that led that ceremony isn't even leading ceremony anymore. It's just like things change, people change, and
Mhm.
spirit takes care of things. When things aren't like super right, things will fall away too. I love the shamanic path, but it's like it's edgy. You see light, you
Yeah.
see shadow. There's a lot to see, and so someone that's feeling the call to do ayahuasca, like, I'm like, be prepared to be brought into your shadow, into your inner underworld, which, like, for me was like that humiliation that I felt, that shame that I felt. I needed to feel that to heal it and to like overcome that, the fear of humiliation. Because now that I've experienced it and been there, it's like, well, it didn't kill me, right? I'm still here, I'm still standing. And like, I was able to rebuild my confidence, quite shortly after that. Just, okay, I got back on my practice, back on my yoga mat, worked with cacao, worked with gratitude, and like worked with some combo, did some cleanses and detoxes. And it was like a month later, I was like back to what I was feeling before too.
It's amazing that we kind of like have this toolbox of things. So like whenever we do dip low, we know what we can do to like get back up. It sounds like you had that experience, and then you were able to bring yourself back to like your normal self. It's like so important to know who the facilitators are and how they're facilitating, and to be able to trust them, because some people just don't know exactly what they're doing, and they're really messing with intense energies.
100%, exactly like what you're sharing. Like, everyone's like feeling excited and feeling called, and people think that they go to one workshop, or they do a weekend training, and they think that they're masters and they're masters of energy and space. Facts are is that, like, there's a lot going on that we don't
Yeah.
see, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, and they're even, since I'm an energy healer and I teach energy healing, like, every year I'm like learning more and more and more, and the importance of cleanliness, and the importance of having like ritual around cleaning ourselves, cleaning the space. Because yeah, like, when you open these portals through sound, through ritual, through plant medicine, you are allowing for spiritual energy to come in. And if you're a person that's facilitating and you're not super clear, well, then you're
Yeah.
more likely to attract the energies that match your vibration. And so then more likely to have in the space energies that are like,
Yeah. I've
yeah.
been working on that too. I actually just got rid of a lot of stuff, like physical items. I'm just cleaning out my space, and it feels so much better. And almost every night I take a bath, I really focus on like cleansing and clearing and meditating to the point where it's literally just me right now. And I'm a clear and clean vessel for divine love to
Mhm.
express through me.
Yeah. And when you're like doing that work and you are this vessel for love and light, the metaphor that I like to use, it's like flies to like a light. And so it's kind of also this like paradox of being a healer. It's like also knowing that your light is also going to attract energies that need healing too. And so
Hmm.
even more reasons to do those rituals, to take those
Yeah.
baths, and also just accept that that's part of it. It's like
Yeah.
kind of like Jedi training, like everyone, that's all walking this path that wants to be a source of light for the world and for their community, going to learn through like this experience where you learn, where you're like, okay, I might have brought an energy home that wasn't mine, but
Yeah.
yeah, I had to process it for the collective for 2 days until it was, it did its thing and went away.
A big part of my learning lesson with being this light and knowing that, yeah, like dark things may be attracted to me, is that I am powerful. I am in charge of my being, of my energy. And it's okay if like a dark thing wants to come in here, but I also get to say goodbye or no, or if you're seeking the light, like you can go to the light, you know? I've
Exactly. Yeah.
had experiences with psychic mediumship when we are sitting at a table and dark energies will come in, and it's usually people who've died who don't realize that they've died, and we'll talk to them and ask them, do you know that you're dead? And they're like, no. And then we say, okay, there, you can go to the light and continue on your journey, continue on this path. Is that something you want to do? So then usually they say yes, so we just guide them to the light. And I think that's like, that's another thing, is these dark things don't realize that the light is an option, and they don't know what the light is.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And that's like a beautiful service, because whether, you know, it's physical or spiritual energies, like there's just a lot of healing that needs to be done in our
Yeah.
world. And these dark energies or these spirits, like they sometimes will impact people. Like say if there's someone's ancestor, like they could like mess up people's energy because they're trying to heal and process their stuff. And so
Yeah.
sometimes with ancestral healing, as people call it, it's like I always tell people, I'm like, don't call in all your ancestors, like call in your ancestors of the light, like you know, like if you want to go there, you want to do the deep work for like your whole lineage, okay, like prepare yourself. Like you might be purging for a while, but you know, one of the churches, Santo Daime, is like an ayahuasca church where that's like a big part of their mission. It's like they drink medicine, and they're a lot of spirits, they help spirits ascend back to the light and go back to source. So there's people out there that definitely, like, that's part of their soul mission, is to help, yeah, be a bridge for these souls to ascend.
Another thing I did want to mention, so I sat with ayahuasca in Peru a few years ago. During my ceremony, there was a moment where I was laying there and I wasn't feeling the effects of the ayahuasca. And I had one thought, and it was straight up my ego. It said, you'll never be able to get rid of me. I think I went in expecting to just be a completely different person, to like have my mind shut off or something. And my mind was like, oh, no, 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 you're not going to get rid of me. And in that exact moment, the ayahuasca just like, it just did something that totally took over my body. And I was like shaking, and the shamans called me up to the front and they were singing to me. And the more that they sung, the more intense it got. They were like, breathe deep, breathe through this. And I did. And eventually it calmed down. I don't know exactly why, but I know that it happened. And what I took from the whole experience is that plants have consciousnesses, and plants are really freaking powerful, because it felt like I literally just ingested this plant. And now these shamans are like singing to the plant that's now inside of me, and it's like cleansing my body and just spinning and creating this energy, and they're like controlling the energy with their sound. And it was so powerful and so profound. Another thing I remember from this trip was that they gave me plant baths. I don't know what plants they used in it, but like before the ceremony, like I cleansed my body with the plants. And even with that, that was like, I felt energetically, I could feel the difference. And something that I just got really inspired to do actually a few months ago, since we're talking about ayahuasca, I ate 4 grams of mushrooms and I was at my house. And this was actually the most I'd ever done. And I was like, okay, what do I want to do? So I took a bath and I have a bunch of herbs, and I literally just like, I picked 3 herbs, I poured it into my bath, and I took this bath. And it was such a profound experience. It reminded me of this time with ayahuasca and how profound plants really are. So I'm now re-inspired to take more plant baths and to connect and ground and let wisdom flow through me.
That's so beautiful. I mean, the plants love us, and we, you know, that's the thing with modern society, is that we've lost connection with the spirit of the earth and the spirit of the plants. You know, the flowers, the trees, like they are pure light. Like that's what they consume, is the sunlight, you know, and they're here these light beings literally just holding space all around us, just waiting for us. Like, "Look, if you want to want to work with me, I'm right here." And I feel like that's a really beautiful experience that you got to remember, like the strong connection that you have to plants and how they can heal you. And me too, recently too, I was like, why am I not taking baths with these herbs? Like just preparing them, steaming them on a pot and like cooking them down. And then with that water, blending, mixing that with my shower, and we're using these herbs. You can do sage, rosemary, rose, and cleanse yourself in this way too. And it always feels really nice afterward. I'm like, ah.
Yeah. What was your spiritual awakening like?
I grew up quite spiritual. I went to private school. I went to a Christian school, and I remember being really connected to God and to Jesus, and reading these stories of the Bible and feeling really inspired by this frequency of Jesus. And then I went to public school later on, and I remember like reading about Buddha and enlightenment, and like being in sixth grade and being like, I want that, and then life happened, and I kind of like went down this path of being like kind of more of like a party girl and hanging out with the bad kids, and kind of like some stuff at home happened that was very traumatic, and I kind of just lost my connection to God. I think in some ways I felt like, he wasn't with me anymore, or wasn't listening to my prayers or helping me out, and kind of left me hang and dry in this kind of traumatic situation. I became much more pragmatic in those like late teens, early adulthood. And I found yoga more from like this, from doing Bikram and like having more of an intention of like, oh, I want to like be fit, and like this is a cool way to work out. Something, when I took my first trip to Southeast Asia, something told me like, why don't you do your yoga teacher training while you're traveling over there? Like, you love yoga. And I ended up finding a yoga teacher training in Ashtanga yoga in India that I went and applied for, and I did. And that training really like shifted some things for me, because I realized like what I was practicing wasn't truly yoga, and I got to learn what real yoga was. It was passed down through a lineage, and I was introduced to Ayurveda and like Ayurvedic psychology or chakra psychology with this book from David Frawley. And I remember I have studied psychology at UCSD, and then when I read this book, I was like, oh my God, learning about the chakras and about energy and how we can heal our energy and our chakras with crystals and colors and light and food. I was like, I want to learn more about this. And I started going really deep into the chakra psychology and understanding my chakras. And through understanding my chakras, I was like, oh my God, like everything I'm living is like pretty much karma. Like my current situation is because I'm in my current situation because I grew up in this kind of environment that then created this vibration inside of me, or the energy inside of me, that now I'm kind of like walking through the world vibrating at this energy. And so I'm attracting into my life this traumatic energy that was, something I experienced as a young adult that I wasn't necessarily in control of. But now as an adult, I'm like, well, I can be in control, and I now have work to do to shift my inner energy so that my world outside is different than what I was brought into. And so that was like my big awakening in my mid 20s, when I started really diving into the chakras, and that fueled my passion for chakras, which now I teach about and like could develop programs and all kinds of things, and even wrote a book about like healing your chakras, because I'm just like, yeah, heal your chakras, heal your world. Like each chakra represents a different area of your life. And so if you use this system to kind of go in and dissect every area of your life and reprogram and cleanse and balance, harmonize those areas, then more over time, like your life starts to reflect that inner work. And so, now like my life is nothing like what it was in those moments. And yeah, there's still some deep karmic lessons that come around, but yeah, that was such a powerful time in my life. And I will say that like I had this awakening around where I was out of alignment. Is a way to put it, like where my life, like it's like my higher self was like, you're doing all these things that aren't correct and not really the best for you. But then like my ego, my pain body, Carlita, was like not equipped or not empowered to be able to just go from what I was to this higher self version of me. And so there was like a 3-year period where I actually felt almost like I had two versions of me. Like I had the version of me that still had these addictions and these codependencies and still walked in this way and did certain things. And then I had this higher self that was like, like you shouldn't do this. You probably shouldn't do that. Like you should do this. And it took 2 to 3 years after that yoga teacher training of me doing yoga and every day and working on my chakras and doing healing to finally become the empowered version of me that could walk away from the things that weren't good for me. And so, everyone's journey is different, but
Mhm.
had I feel like had I had like a mentor or a guide, I probably wouldn't have encountered this like those same problems, or like I would have been able to fix them faster. But I was in a place before that where I never had even had that in my life, so I didn't even know how to get that. And eventually, over time, I did finally have like mentors and guides and spirit guides come into my life that started to help
Yeah.
me on my path.
What is the name of your book?
It's called, it's not like a published book. It's more a part of like my program. But
Okay.
yeah, it's called like Heal Your Chakras, Here, Transform Your Life.
Okay.
And it's part of my Prosperity Embodied program. And, Prosperity Embodied, meaning like, when you work on your chakras, you heal your inner world, like you're naturally going to embody more prosperity because you're going to align and magnetize to your true, to your true path and those things that you really desire and that are meant for you. And so in that journey, like we have 9 modules and we go through each chakra, each module. Each chakra is connected to each element. So we're looking at it through this lens of the elements, which is kind of shamanic in itself. And I kind of feel like each chapter is like an ayahuasca ceremony because there's a lot of questions around like,
Mhm.
what happened with your mother? Like, what's your birth story? What's your relationship with your father? What's your relationship to money? And we just go really deep into all of these areas of your life that most people aren't thinking about. But once we start
Mhm.
like thinking about it and we can start to see, oh wait, well, there's a pattern there. And oh wait, like maybe that limiting belief is why I'm having a hard time attracting abundance because I grew up in an environment where there was never money. So I think that that's my reality, but really it's a belief that was, old, and we can reprogram it and shift that to with affirmations, with energy healing, with release, with grief, and like letting those emotions and those past timelines go to upgrade it to the timeline we want to be in.
Is that your only program? Do you have any others?
And that's one of my programs. That program like kind of also goes into some other programs that I have that are a bit more like around if you want to be an energy healer and a facilitator of cacao ceremonies, or if you want to do transformational workshops. Like I teach Reiki, and then there's like a longer program where like you learn Reiki and then you learn about how to heal the chakras, and then you learn how to host healing sessions or workshops where you can incorporate all of this journey and this medicine into your offerings. And I'm a firm believer that like true healing comes from within. The reason why I teach is like, I could do a healing session for you and do Reiki and not say anything that I'm doing. And like you come out and yeah, you probably feel good. And that's definitely nice to receive sometimes. Or I can give you these tools that you can do on your own and even share with others and not only heal you, but like, you get to take this away with you for life. And so that's why I love teaching, because it's like, oh, I'd rather just give people the tools so that they can heal themselves when they need it. I mean, if I had to pay a therapist for all of the healing that I needed to go through and, in my journey, like, I'd be in so much debt. But because I had these tools and could actually work on myself, I was able to do things every day, every day,
Mhm.
do my practice and do something to help support me.
That is so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Something that I feel like that I've learned over this spiritual path is like taking your time, like not rushing things, trusting the journey, also trusting those callings. And if like there is a calling, like to open up those possibilities, but not to, to check yourself when it's like your ego saying, I want it now. And instead being like, hey, like giving it up to spirit and being like, if I'm meant to do this, bring someone or like show me. And that communication with spirit and that ability to listen is what brings in the blessings, it brings in the proper alignment versus like trying to force it. I think we're in a time now where we're hearing about the feminine rising and this energy of the feminine. Well, for me, the feminine is like that trust and that flow and like being okay with walking in the unknown, and not like the masculine would be like, oh, I'm going to do this and force it and blah, blah, blah. The feminine is like,
Mhm.
all right, I have this desire, I have this intention, and I trust that my feminine magnetism is going to bring what's meant for me into my life when it's meant for me. And it's going to be in rhythm with the seasons, with the cycles of the moon, with my own internal spiritual cycles. And so I would just want to see more of that. And I would love for people to like, another thing is like, I think when we have a spiritual awakening, it feels like really exciting. And I'm like, I love, I see this so much. People get super excited. They want to do all the things.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, we did it. We're woke. We're here. And that's just like, that's not even it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's usually a crash after that. So I want to warn people, like, enjoy the high, because after the high comes a dip. And that's when the real spiritual journey begins. And after that dip,
Mm.
it's like when you really integrate the light and the shadow, and then you come into a place, I feel like, of balance and understanding that both are always going to be a part of it. And you don't have to be extreme light or extreme dark. Like, being part of being human is like being okay with all of it. And like, we're going to make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. And I think that's why Jesus came down to teach us how to forgive, because it's like just part of the human experience is like being able to understand that we are human, we make mistakes, we're going to make mistakes, other people are going to make mistakes, we don't have to be perfect, we just have to try our best. Yeah, I think that I'll just let people know that.
Last night I pulled an oracle card and it was surrender and trust. It's actually kind of exciting. Oh, I get to just surrender and I get to just trust and I get to just have faith. Like I have my vision and I'm willing to do the masculine steps. I'm definitely very masculine and I'm like, I can do this. Like I've definitely forced things too in my past, but I'm working on just how do I balance the two? Like, yeah, feminine's rising, but like also don't just let masculine completely go. It's like I want to balance, really just have faith and let the universe give it to me.
Yeah, like holding the vision, taking those steps, every day to work toward your goals, totally healthy. Like we, as the feminine, need the masculine structure and support in order to manifest. But it is, like you said, it's a balance, and depending on where you are in the spectrum, it's finding like where you can bring, your energy toward more of to make spaciousness. Sometimes it's not even like, it's like the universe wants to give us something, but we literally don't even have the space for it. So we can't receive what we're calling in because we're too busy, doing things and meeting, being surrounded by people and this and that, and always filling up, our cup and schedule, when it's like the spirit's just like, I just want to give you this, but you don't even, like, give me a day.
That's so beautiful. I have so much space. I'm just
like, I'm ready.
I'm so excited. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.